It started with a conversation I thought would bring us closer. Alex and I had been married for 6 years, and while our love was still strong, the spark that once defined our relationship felt dimmer. Date nights had turned into routine dinners, intimacy had become infrequent, and our once playful banter now felt strained. I'd been reading articles and listening to podcasts about how couples could reignite passion by exploring alternative relationship models. The idea of opening our marriage had intrigued me, not as a way to replace Alex, but as a way to complement what we already had. I was convinced it could strengthen us, help us reconnect while giving us both a chance to rediscover ourselves. One evening, as we sat on the couch after dinner, I decided to bring it up. "Alex," I began cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. "Can we talk about something?" He looked up from his phone, his brow furrowing slightly. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I hesitated for a moment, gathering my thoughts. "I've been thinking about us, about our marriage, and I was wondering how you'd feel about trying something new." He set his phone down, giving me his full attention. "Okay," he said slowly. "What kind of new?" I took a deep breath. "I've been reading about open relationships, about how some couples use them to reignite passion and build a stronger bond. I thought maybe we could talk about it, see if it's something that could work for us." The room fell silent. Alex stared at me, his expression unreadable at first. Then his brow furrowed deeper, his mouth tightening. "You're serious?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Yes," I said quickly, trying to explain. "I'm not saying we rush into anything. It's just something we could explore together. I think it could be healthy for us." "Healthy?" he interrupted, his voice rising. "How the hell is sleeping with other people supposed to be healthy for our marriage?" "It's not just about that," I insisted, feeling panic creep in. "It's about connection, freedom, and rediscovering ourselves. It's about making us stronger, Alex." He stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. "Stronger?" he repeated, letting out a bitter laugh. "You think opening our marriage will make us stronger? All I hear is that I'm not enough for you anymore." "That's not what I'm saying," I pleaded, standing to face him. "You are enough, Alex. I love you more than anything. This isn't about replacing you. It's about growing together." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "Growing together? By bringing other people into our marriage? Do you even hear yourself, Caitlin?" I reached out to him, desperate to calm him down. "Please, Alex, just listen. This doesn't mean I don't love you. It means I love you enough to want to try something new, to make sure we're happy and fulfilled." But my words only seemed to fuel his anger. He pulled back, pacing the room as his frustration boiled over. "I can't believe this," he muttered. "I thought we were happy. I thought I was enough for you. And now you're telling me you want to sleep with other people and call it love?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I tried to reason with him. "It's not like that. It's about more than just sex, Alex. It's about being honest with each other, about building something even stronger." "Honest?" he shouted, cutting me off. "You want to talk about honesty? Here's some honesty for you, Caitlin. I think this is bullshit. I think you're just looking for an excuse to cheat without feeling guilty about it." His words hit me like a slap, and I felt my own anger bubbling up. "That's not fair," I said, my voice trembling. "I came to you because I wanted to have an open conversation, because I thought we could talk about this like adults. I didn't expect you to react like this." "Like this?" he repeated, his voice rising again. "How else am I supposed to react? My wife just told me she wants to sleep with other people and thinks it'll fix our marriage. How would you feel if I said that to you?" Before I could respond, Alex stopped pacing and turned to me, his face a mix of anger and pain. Without saying a word, he reached for his left hand and pulled off his wedding ring. "Alex, don't," I said, panic rising in my chest. But he ignored me, walking over to the bathroom and throwing open the door. I followed him, pleading with him to stop, but he was already standing over the toilet. "You want to throw our marriage away?" he said, his voice cold and trembling. "Fine, let's make it official." Before I could stop him, he dropped his wedding ring into the bowl, then grabbed my hand and yanked off my ring as well. "Alex, please," I cried, but it was too late. He tossed my ring in after his, flushed the toilet, and turned to face me. "It's done," he said quietly, his eyes full of hurt. "You wanted to destroy us, Caitlin. Congratulations, you succeeded." With that, he brushed past me and left the house, slamming the door behind him. I sank to the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face as I stared at the empty space where our rings had disappeared. The sound of the toilet flushing echoed in my ears, a final, devastating punctuation to the conversation that had shattered everything. I thought I was offering a way to strengthen our marriage, to bring us closer together. But in trying to open a door, I had slammed another one shut. And now I wasn't sure if it could ever be reopened. After Alex stormed out of the house that night, I sat on the bathroom floor for what felt like hours, replaying the argument in my head. I could still hear the sound of the toilet flushing. The image of our wedding rings disappearing down the drain burned into my mind. When he didn't come home, I told myself he just needed space, time to cool off and think. But as the hours turned into days, it became clear that this wasn't a fleeting argument. Something had broken between us, something I wasn't sure I could fix. Alex's silence was crushing. He didn't answer my texts, didn't return my calls. When he finally responded to one of my messages, a simple, "I need time," the words felt colder than if he'd said nothing at all. At first, I tried to convince myself that he was overreacting. This wasn't supposed to be a betrayal. It was supposed to be a conversation about growth, about strengthening our bond. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply I'd underestimated his feelings. For Alex, our marriage had been sacred, built on promises of exclusivity and loyalty. By suggesting an open relationship, I had, in his eyes, shattered that foundation. And while I thought I was being honest and progressive, he saw it as a rejection of everything we'd built together. When he finally came back 3 days later, I was waiting for him in the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. "Alex," I said softly as he closed the door behind him, "can we please talk?" He didn't answer right away, just set his keys on the counter and stood there, staring at the floor. Finally, he looked up, his face a mix of exhaustion and hurt. "I don't know what there is to talk about, Caitlin," he said, his voice flat. "About us," I pleaded, standing to face him. "About what happened. I never meant to hurt you." "Didn't you?" he said bitterly, folding his arms. "Because it sure feels like you did." I flinched at the sharpness of his words. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," I said, my voice trembling. I thought we could explore something new together, something that could bring us closer." "Closer?" he repeated, shaking his head. "Do you even hear yourself? You think sleeping with other people is going to bring us closer?" "That's not love, Caitlin. That's not marriage." "It's not just about that," I said quickly, desperate to make him understand. "It's about being open and honest with each other, about finding new ways to connect. I thought—" "You thought?" he interrupted, his voice rising. "You thought about what you wanted. Did you ever stop to think about how I'd feel? Did you even consider that this might be the exact opposite of what I want?" "I did," I insisted, though the words felt weak even to me. I didn't think it would upset you this much. I thought you'd at least be open to talking about it." "Well, you thought wrong," he snapped. The room fell silent for a moment, the tension so thick it felt hard to breathe. Alex ran a hand through his hair, letting out a bitter laugh. "You know, I keep asking myself if I ever really knew you," he said quietly. "Because the woman I married would never have come up with something like this." "That's not fair," I said, tears welling up in my eyes. "I'm still the same person, Alex. I love you. I'm trying to make things better for us." "Better?" he said, his voice breaking. "You think this makes things better? Caitlin, all you've done is make me feel like I'm not enough for you. Like our marriage isn't enough." His words cut deep, and I struggled to find the right response. "You are enough," I said, my voice shaking. "You've always been enough. This was never about replacing you. It was about growing together, about trying something new to keep us strong." "But we were already strong," he said, his voice quieter now but no less pained. "At least I thought we were. And now—" Now, I don't even know if I can trust you." I stepped closer, reaching for his hand, but he pulled away. "Alex, please," I whispered. "Don't say that. We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with a sadness that took my breath away. "I don't know if you can," he said finally. That night, Alex packed a bag. I begged him to stay, but his mind was made up. "I need time to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. As he walked out the door, the sound of it closing behind him felt like the final punctuation to everything we'd built together. I sat on the floor of the living room, tears streaming down my face, realizing that I had pushed too far, too fast, without ever considering how deeply it would hurt him. I had thought I was offering a way to strengthen our marriage, but instead, I had undermined the very foundation of it. And now, I wasn't sure if there was any way to rebuild what we'd lost. A few days later, when Alex finally agreed to meet, I felt a fragile sliver of hope. He suggested we talk at a cafe, away from the house, as if we needed neutral ground to confront the wreckage of our marriage. I arrived early and sat nervously, tapping my fingers on the edge of my teacup. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. He looked different, more distant, his usual warmth replaced with a quiet determination. He sat across from me without a word, his expression guarded, his hands clasped tightly on the table. "Thank you for coming," I said softly, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound calm. He gave a small nod, his eyes briefly meeting mine before drifting down to his hands. "Alex," I began, taking a deep breath, "I know what I said hurt you. I know how much I upset you, and I want you to know that I never meant to. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought what I was suggesting could help us." His lips curled into a bitter, humorless smile. "Help us?" he repeated, his tone sharp. "You think suggesting I share my wife with other people is helping us?" I flinched, his words hitting me like a slap. "It's not like that," I said quickly. "I wasn't trying to replace you or anything like that. I wanted us to explore something new together, to bring us closer." "Closer," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You wanted us to get closer by opening our marriage? Do you even hear yourself, Caitlin? Do you realize what you're asking?" Tears began to sting my eyes, but I blinked them back, trying to stay composed. "I thought it could strengthen us," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought it could give us more honesty, more connection." "Honesty?" he snapped, leaning forward slightly. "You want to talk about honesty? Because let me tell you what this feels like. It feels like you've been lying to me this whole time. Like the vows we made didn't mean a damn thing to you." "That's not true," I protested, my voice cracking. "I love you, Alex. I've always loved you. This isn't about replacing what we have. It's about making it better." He shook his head, a mix of anger and disbelief flashing in his eyes. "Making it better?" he said, his voice rising. "You really don't get it, do you? You're not just talking about experimenting or whatever you want to call it. You're asking me to throw away everything I believed in when I married you. Fidelity, trust, exclusivity. That's what our marriage was built on, Caitlin. And you've already destroyed it." "I didn't destroy anything," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "It was just an idea, Alex. A conversation. I thought we could talk about it like adults." "Adults?" he repeated bitterly. "If you wanted to talk about this like adults, you should have considered how I'd feel. You should have thought about what this would do to me. But you didn't. You thought about yourself." The truth in his words was like a dagger, but I couldn't stop trying to defend myself. "I didn't mean to make you feel this way," I said, my voice shaking. "I thought we could work through it together. That's what I wanted. For us to grow together." "Grow together," he said softly, his tone now heavy with sadness. "Caitlin, I don't even recognize you anymore. The woman I married would have never suggested something like this. The woman I married believed in the same things I did." "I'm still that woman," I insisted, reaching for his hand. But he pulled away, his expression unreadable. "No, Caitlin," he said firmly. "You're not. Or maybe you never were, and I just didn't see it. But the truth is, I can't look at you the same way anymore. I don't think I ever will." His words left me frozen. "Alex," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, don't say that. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just don't give up on us." He looked at me for a long moment, his gaze filled with a deep, unbearable sadness. "I've already given it a lot of thought," he said quietly, "and I can't do it anymore." The silence that followed felt deafening. I stared at him, my mind racing, but I couldn't find the words to change his mind. "I've filed for divorce," he said finally, his tone calm but final. The world seemed to tilt around me. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "Alex, please, don't do this. Don't throw away everything we've built together." He stood slowly, his movements deliberate as he reached for his keys. "You already threw it away, Caitlin," he said softly. "I just made it official." I couldn't hold back the sobs as he walked away, his footsteps echoing in my ears. When the door to the cafe closed behind him, I felt the weight of what I'd done crush me entirely. I had thought I was offering a way to strengthen our marriage, to bring us closer. But instead, I had destroyed the very foundation of trust and love that we'd built together, and now there was no going back. After Alex walked out of the cafe that day, I knew it was over. He didn't yell, didn't slam the door. He just left, taking with him the last remnants of hope I had for us. The silence he left behind was deafening, and for the first time, I truly understood the weight of what I had done. The divorce process was swift. Alex didn't want a drawn-out fight. He just wanted to move on. When the papers arrived, I stared at them for hours, the words blurring through my tears. Each signature felt like a nail in the coffin of our marriage, a final acknowledgement of the destruction I had caused. Alex cut all ties with me completely. He moved out of our house and into a small apartment across town. Mutual friends told me he had started focusing on his career, taking on new projects, and even picking up hobbies he'd always talked about but never pursued. He seemed lighter, freer, as though letting go of me had also lifted a weight off his shoulders. At first, I resented that freedom. I watched from a distance as he rebuilt his life, while I sat in the ruins of what we'd once shared. Our home felt cold and empty without him. His favorite mug sat untouched in the cupboard, and his side of the bed remained perfectly made, as if waiting for him to come back. But he never did. The loneliness was overwhelming. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment that led to this point. I saw every mistake with painful clarity. The words I should have said, the conversations I should have started differently, the feelings I should have considered before opening my mouth. I tried to busy myself with work, with friends, with anything that could fill the void he left behind. But no matter what I did, the guilt was always there, a constant reminder of the damage I had caused. In therapy, I began to unpack the choices I'd made and the fears that had driven them. I realized how much I had underestimated Alex's feelings, how deeply I had betrayed his trust by proposing something that went against everything he believed in. I thought I was being progressive, offering a way to strengthen our marriage, but in reality, I had been selfish, prioritizing my desires over his needs. Friends tried to comfort me, but their words only highlighted the truth. "He'll come around," one of them said, but I knew Alex too well. When he made a decision, he stuck to it. And when he said he couldn't trust me anymore, I believed him. Months passed, and Alex seemed to thrive. He started traveling more, sharing photos of hiking trips and new experiences on social media. He looked happy, genuinely happy, and that was the hardest part. Seeing him smile without me, knowing I'd never be part of his new life, was a pain I couldn't put into words. Meanwhile, I felt stuck, paralyzed by the weight of my mistakes. I tried to reach out to him once, sending a long message apologizing for everything and asking if there was any chance we could talk. His response was polite but final. "I think it's best if we don't stay in touch." "I wish you the best, Caitlin." Those words were like a dagger to the heart. I had held onto a shred of hope that maybe, somehow, we could find a way back to each other. But Alex had moved on, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my life without him. Over time, I began to see the lessons in what had happened. I realized that love isn't just about grand gestures or new ideas. It's about understanding, respect, and the ability to put your partner's feelings above your own. I had failed to do that, and it had cost me everything. The house eventually became too much to bear, and I moved into a smaller apartment. Packing up our life together was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every box was a reminder of what we'd shared and what I had lost. I don't know if Alex will ever truly forgive me, and I don't expect him to, but I've learned to carry that guilt as a reminder of the person I never want to be again. I've learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild, and that love without respect and understanding isn't enough to hold a marriage together. Now, when I think of Alex, it's with a mix of pain and gratitude. He taught me what it means to truly love someone, and he showed me the consequences of taking that love for granted. I hope he's happy in his new life, even if I'll never be part of it. And as much as it hurts, I know that letting him go was the only way to give him the peace he deserved. The divorce with Alex became a harsh but necessary lesson for me. When our separation was finalized, I was left alone, grappling with the realization of how crucial trust and respect are in any relationship. My suggestion to open our marriage, while well-intentioned, completely disregarded Alex's emotional boundaries and his values surrounding fidelity. I had convinced myself that my proposal was progressive and would strengthen our bond, but in reality, it undermined the foundation of our marriage. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, and I had shattered Alex's faith in me with just a few careless words. Watching him walk away, not just from me, but from the life we had built together, was devastating. The silence of our now empty home was a constant reminder of what I had lost and the mistakes that had led us here. Alex moved on, focusing on rebuilding his life, and though it hurt to see him thrive without me, I knew he deserved the peace he had found. This experience taught me that even the best intentions can destroy a relationship if they fail to honor the emotional boundaries and beliefs of a partner. Trust and mutual respect are not optional. They are the very foundation of love. Without them, even the strongest bond will crumble. Now, I carry this lesson forward, knowing I must be more mindful in any future relationship. Love is not just about sharing dreams, but also about respecting the limits and values of the person you choose to share them with.